And welcome to the Contenders Corner Podcast, where we talk everything that is wrestling. I am joined by Scott and Matt today. I am your host, and join me and Matt and Scott as we dissect this episode of Hard Talk. We're on and by a show here, and we'll go into this episode with an open mind, whether it's good or whether it's bad. We aren't afraid to hit home some honest, wondrous thoughts here. If you're new to this, then please like, share, comment and subscribe, and comment in the comment section below and show us your opinions of what wrestling means to you. Stay with us as we have a lot to discuss here. YouTube, are you ready? This is Hard Talk. With the news floating around, guys, we're going to jump in. What are your thoughts of Money in the Bank? We'll go with Scott.
I think some of the results are expected. I mean, there was a small shock with men's ladder match and also the women's winner cashing in. But at the end of the day, I'm not too much against it because fans have been crying for a long time that WWE pushes younger stars, and both the winners are basically young stars. So
I know a lot of YouTubers have been discussing this at the minute. A huge vast of social media have literally turned against the idea of having Theory as the winner for Money in the Bank, and if it is gonna happen, to cash in on Roman Reigns. Are you one of those people, Matt?
Theory to cash in on Roman Reigns?
Yeah.
No.
Are you with it or are you against it?
I don't think he'll be Roman.
Right. Can you elaborate on that, both of you?
It's going to be Theory cashing in on a weakened Brock Lesnar.
Just as well. And this was what I said to Scott last week, didn't I? But I had Seth Rollins in that thing. But I did mention I wouldn't put it past me if Theory was to be the winner.
We are being watched, my friends.
I totally agree, mate. I totally agree, and I think they pulled a swerve on us there because I would have had Seth Rollins or Riddle to have cashed in on either a weakened Roman Reigns or a tiresome. He's just won a huge win on Brock Lesnar again. He's come out. He's battled. He's bruised. He's tired, and then out of nowhere, just like Ronda Rousey, Liv Morgan cashes out on Ronda Rousey, and that's what I thought would have happened if Seth Rollins or Riddle would have won it. You know what I mean? Come down on a tired Roman Reigns and gave him a beat down, and then walked out with the championship. But
like you said to me though, Jace, you
yeah.
said obviously he's got his rematch against Bobby Lashley. Say he wins the rematch, then cashes in on any of them two in the main event, and then he becomes a triple champion.
Yeah.
And then go on to WrestleMania to fight John Cena.
Right.
And then Cena wins his 17th title.
But would it be his 17th title? Because if he's winning the undisputed, if he cashes in on the undisputed, is he by that are you meaning is he cashing in on just one belt and leaves Roman Reigns with another, or is he cashing in on both belts? Because then that would mean that if John Cena wins the undisputed championship, then he would be 18-time world champion. Is that right? If he wins both together.
I think both titles will count as one reign. I think because both belts, even though they are two separate belts, they're actually joined together. So right now it's actually acting as one championship.
Right, yeah.
So if WWE do go down the route we've just discussed, then yes, it will be seen as the 17th championship.
What are you? As I just asked to, Matt to elaborate on it. What are your theory? What is your input on it, Scott?
Well, personally, I can't see him cashing on Roman Reigns. So I think this is possibly the biggest indication yet that Roman Reigns is about to lose the World Championship.
Right.
Because they're not going to have Theory. Alright, yeah, they're building a star in Theory. So you're going to make him cash in on the biggest star in the company over the last 3 years? Nah, I can't see that. What I could potentially see happening, because one person's name we've actually left out this conversation, and that is Drew McIntyre.
Yeah.
Because don't forget, Drew McIntyre has got a shot on UK soil at the world title. So my guess what's going to happen is Reigns and Lesnar in the last man standing match at SummerSlam. I think that's going to end in a draw. I think both men be knocked down and neither of them will stand up before the 10. I think at the end of the draw, fans will boo them out of the arena. Then they'll turn that into a triple threat match in Cardiff. That way, McIntyre can win the match by pinning Lesnar. Reigns doesn't actually be involved in the fall. That way, you're protecting Reigns, you're boosting McIntyre, and if they use Theory, you're cashing on Drew. No, but that's another thing that I could potentially see happening. It's a triple threat in Cardiff with McIntyre pinning Lesnar, and that way McIntyre gets his big moment.
As we discussed last week, with the rise of Forbidden Door, and I asked you a question. WWE needs something big, hot, to get fans' attention, and I think they've done that. I think they have, quite frankly, done that within one weekend. You've got Liv Morgan. They gave the fans what they wanted, which was what most people wanted for nearly over a year, probably 2 years, to see Liv Morgan, the women's champion. They've done a right swerve, pulled a right swerve under the bag, making Theory the winner of the Money in the Bank. Is that a good move for WWE, would you say? We'll go with Matt.
They are pushing a young star.
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of fans want. They want to see the future stars being pushed towards the main event picture. Yeah. Now, how long Theory will hold this briefcase for, we never know. He might do what Rollins did and actually cash it in at Mania. There's no guarantee what he could do. I think it is a good move at WWE because not only is he like this young, brash heel, and obviously heels do sometimes get over more than faces, but for his youth, I think it's a great move that they're really investing in the future. Maybe they need to do more of that, I think.
Yeah. And they have pulled a right swerve. What are your opinion on what I've just asked Scott, Matt?
I don't know. It's hard to say, isn't it? Really, like you say, Theory's like the new hand-picked. He's basically like the new version of the chosen one. So obviously Vince is now moved to Austin Theory, whatever you want to call him. He sees him being seen for the next 10 years. So, he's been given the US title. He's had a bit of championship running, and now it's now moving him on to it's basically can't go in the same way I've seen it when he first started off. His first title, the US title, and then he moved on to be WWE champion.
Yeah.
Exactly the same storyline wise as John Cena like 10, 15 years ago.
But when John Cena debuted, he defeated a big name in Kurt Angle.
Did he win that match? I'm sure Kurt Angle won that. Sure.
I think his first big win was against Big Show, wasn't it?
Did Kurt Angle win that match, or did he roll up?
I think Cena's first big win was against Chris Jericho at Vengeance. But that very first match with Angle, I'm fairly sure Angle won. Sure of that.
Hold on.
Meltdown, Jason. Meltdown.
Yeah, that's a meltdown question for you.
Don't worry, everyone. You're just consulting Google.
Yeah, just that's it for you.
Yeah, he was beaten by Kurt Angle. Yeah, corrected. I stand corrected. I actually thought he did win. Sorry, I stand corrected. But yeah, like, you know, he had on his debut. You know, he was set up in his first year. You know, just how Brock Lesnar was set up. But Austin Theory ain't been set up like that. Like, he ain't, you know, they ain't give him like big name fights. You know what I mean?
Well, there is one benefit that's around today that wasn't around when John Cena and Brock Lesnar broke through. That's NXT.
Yeah.
Theory had the luxury
of NXT.
And going with Johnny Gargano can be in the way, because that helped him sort of get a bit stronger, get a bit better in his performance before he came up to and got this big push.
So
NXT benefited him a lot.
So the advantage of these newcomers is that what you're saying is that NXT kind of elevates them more. As they come over from the roster onto the main roster, yeah.
Because a lot of the indie guys, when they come to NXT, what NXT actually gave them was exposure on TV. Now, there's a lot of indie companies where the likes of Keith Lee, everyone come from beforehand. Yeah, they were doing brilliantly, but they weren't getting the TV exposure. NXT was helping these younger, especially guys like Austin Theory, own his craft on TV and more eyes watching them. That will always benefit someone, always. It sets them up for the future, and Theory is the future.
Is Theory the guy to carry WWE over for the next 10 years, the next decade, Matt?
Will he be the star for the next 10 years?
Is he the guy to carry them over for the next decade?
No.
Could you elaborate on that? Why no?
Well, obviously, it's like Booker T is example. He thinks the fans will get over Theory more if Theory turns into a babyface. I just think that Theory as a babyface would not get over it all. I think the way that he kind of gets over is get over more with a more serious heel gimmick than being bloody selfie wannabe. If he gets given a more serious heel gimmick, then I think he'd get more that way.
What about you, Scott? Is he the...
I do agree he does need a bit more of a serious gimmick.
Yeah.
I do agree. But I also believe that he is a guy that can carry WWE over the next 10 years. I think he's going to be a multiple-time world champion. He's going to be pushed into big feuds. Now, if you look at some of the young guys in the talent, like young guys in the roster today, there isn't that many. Because you're relying on, now, one feud we could see over the next few years. And you got Gable Stevenson coming through, him and Theory. Imagine that as the babyface heel rival going 5-10 years into the future. That's the way that beats plot. And I think that's something they don't do as much as other companies.
I know.
But now that they're pushing Theory into this good position, surely the only way is that main event scene for the next few years. And I think guys like him, guys like Gable Stevenson, guys like, Dominic Mysterio needs a little bit more pushing. But yeah, I think that's one of the feuds we can expect to see in the future, Stevenson Theory.
Are we going to see more? Are we going to see more previous NXT stars come into kind of like this same situation?
Well, when you say previous, do you mean
like the ones that are there now? So you got Walter, who is Gunther, and then you got Pete Dunne.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Him, Kaiser, Bron Breakker, Grayson Waller, Carmelo Hayes, even Montez Ford. These guys are the future of pro wrestling. And if pushed right, I see no reason why they can't hold down the company for the next 10 years or so.
So you're saying that, as I asked last week, that, Roman Reigns seems to be the only guy that they've got, the only star that they've got at the minute that is carrying WWE. And then I asked you who could be potential stars that could step up and allow Roman Reigns to step aside for a bit. Is it a good idea that they're not choosing people in the main roster, but they're grabbing these guys like Austin Theory from NXT? Could we see more, Matt?
I could probably see maybe 3 or 4 that could possibly make the jump at the I could probably see, like Scott said, Braun Breaker is probably going to be the next one, but under that you could have, like you say, Clara Hayes, maybe Santos X, Joe Gacy maybe. And then
that's the guy I like. I like Joe Gacy a lot.
Yeah, the women's side, you can't really say because of all kind of Jewish, so maybe Mandy Rose go back real, but other than that, can it?
What about you, Scott?
I still think they could push like Cora Jade, maybe Roxanne Perez, Alba Fire. I think is another one that deserves a big push. Yeah, I mean, the only way of knowing how they do is if you put them into that position, and hopefully they will shine. But yeah, I suppose the women's division, so it is a little bit thin if you take away the likes of Charlotte, Becky, Asuka, and Bianca. But now with Liv Morgan getting this push, she is SmackDown Women's Champion now. So hopefully she can have a decent run.
Here's a question. Me and Matt did have this conversation during midweek. I think we had it a couple of days ago. Matt brought to attention, if they ever did bring back the Authority, how would you book it? How would you book the return? I'll give this one to Scott because we've already discussed this.
Yeah.
probably have two sides. Whereas you've got Vince and Shane, who are like the heels, basically trying to keep going with Vince's basically his vision, what he's had for the last 20, 30 odd years. Basically being the Vince McMahon that he always has been. But then on the other side, you've got Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, who are trying to fight for the futures, protecting the talents they've got. Sort of like they're challenging Vince and Shane's ways in a way. Whereas you've got basically good cop, bad cop. You've got Vince and Shane who are the bad cops. You've got Triple H and Stephanie who are the good cops. Basically trying to rebel against Shane and Vince, pushing the young talents to deserve it. Guys like Riddle, guys like Ricochet, Shinsuke Nakamura, pushing those guys. But that's what I would do. I have two sides to it. You've got the bad side and the good side. And they're trying to one-up each other. Which basically we've seen for years anyway, but I'd still make it a bit more fresher. Have Triple H and Stephanie try to one-up Shane and Vince, and them trying to get one back over on them. That's what I would do. That way you've got people to boo, and you've got people to cheer.
Yeah.
That way you've got both sides.
I get what you mean. What about you, Matt? How would you book the return of the Authority?
You said that how we the other day. We said that there'd be two co-leaders, which would be Vince McMahon and Adam Pearce. We would have back in the olden days, we had the show champ. We said we discussed that would be Austin Theory.
Yeah.
Be the chosen champ. And obviously they used to have like a tag. So we'd have like the more vicious Viking ring as as that. And then we get I think we discussed who else did say that was joining them three. I forgot who you said.
Say that again, sorry.
Obviously, we discussed that the Viking Raiders, and then you said someone to add on to it. I can't remember who you said.
Ooh. I can't remember. I'm trying to think now.
Braun Breaker or Ciampa?
Yeah, I'd have Ciampa as the bodyguard, and then I'd have Braun Breaker or Ciampa as a bodyguard. I'll definitely have Braun Breaker in there, Ciampa in there in some way. Who would you have as a woman in there?
Ooh, good question.
Lacey Evans.
That's a good shout.
I was thinking more
that's a good shout, though.
Raquel Gonzalez.
Raquel Gonzalez.
Or whatever name she's changed to now.
I would also have, because at the minute she's quite innocent, right? But what if she was to go in the Authority turned her from being innocent and all like, with the fans and whatever. What if they manipulated Liv Morgan? Because she's this kind of sweet and innocent character, isn't it?
What if, like, you put him in a suit or something?
Yeah, something like that anyway. Or made her like into like a Shayna Baszler, you know, more vicious kind of thing. With more bite. Who would you have in there, Scott?
I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I don't think I'll feel that. I mean, the only way of knowing if it'll work is if they tried it. But,
Yeah.
I personally think Lacey Evans is the perfect person for that role. I think.
Yeah.
Because we know that she is good as a heel anyway, and with a woman's right, she can take any of them out.
Has WWE's roster? Have they got a roster to bring back a potential authority? We'll start with Scott.
There's a lot of guys on there that can be manipulated. I mean, for a start, look at Max Dupree. He's convinced people to become male models. So if he can do that, and I'm sure there's people on there that can turn people into like a menace and to sort of be like a muscle and stuff for the authority. Yeah.
What about you, Matt? Have they got people on the whole roster at the minute that could build a potential return for the authority, like an authority 2.0?
I think probably one person that's been used with gimmicks.
Could you say that again, sorry, because it's gone all a bit skippy.
I can name one person who has been very mistreated with gimmicks as well.
Go on.
He used to be Dominic Dijakovic, who is now T-Bar.
T-Bar. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout.
It's a good shout, though.
He deserves to be what he used to be in NXT. You know, if they put him in a suit, or kind of like what's his name? That vicious Oblong. Make him be like him.
Vicious Oblong?
Hey?
You say a Vicious Oblong?
No, Kozlov.
Oh, for a second I thought you said a Vicious Oblong. I went, what?
Oblong. Coswell.
Yeah.
Kozlov.
Yeah, Kozlov was good, but he wasn't. Because he wasn't really a serious compare for too long.
Is this the kind of common denominator here? Like people that they loved in NXT. These wrestlers that came in NXT. I've asked you this multiple times, like, but it's like I've got to ask this again. It's like, you know, them great people that were in NXT, they were brilliant in NXT. Then they go over to the main roster, and then they just flop. You know, they get pushed aside, or their gimmick changes and they just get embarrassed on TV. Like what Matt said, like with T-Bar. But on NXT, he was brilliant on NXT.
Well, yeah, he was. I suppose with Vince, if a guy comes up and then they don't really fulfill his imagination enough, then he's not going to use them. It's all about he wants people who can basically come in and say, wow, he looks exciting, he looks good. But then you see it, and then he probably thinks, nah, and he just sticks him in the mid card. It's sad, but that's what happens.
Was Bret Hart right in his book? The main event is only for a certain circle. We'll ask this to Matt.
I've not seen his book. I don't know what he said.
That's what I've heard he said in his book, saying that something about Shawn Michaels and the a certain group were pushed. If you know what I mean, Scott.
A certain group were pushed,
certain people, basically.
Well, yeah. I mean, probably Triple H probably won.
Like your Hulk Hogan's, you know, Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I suppose certain people, maybe it's down to, some of it is down to politics. If Vince thinks he can make a star out of you, he will.
If he doesn't,
then it's going to be harder and harder to sort of make a success in the business.
Is it all down to politics then? Is it all that simple then? Is it basically, if Vince doesn't like you, then you're a mid card or a lower card, but if he does like you, he'll put you in the main event picture?
Yeah, so
is it all that simple?
As I said, if he doesn't like you, then you basically got to impress him. I mean, before you impress the fans, you've got to impress him first. If he doesn't like what he sees, then he won't use you. Pure and simple.
Here's a question then, a hard question. Referring to that question that I've just asked, if Vince doesn't like you, he'll mid card you. If he does love you, then bang, he'll have you on there. On the light of Fox TV, they didn't like the gimmick that Bray had, the Funhouse gimmick. Was that just Fox? Was that Fox, or was it WWE that didn't like it in the end? We'll ask this one to Matt. Was it Fox that didn't like that gimmick, or was it WWE?
I would say it was more than likely WWE. I think that was part of the reason why Fox did want it. Fox wanted the 5-5 Funhouse to be more edgier, more darker than when he was on Monday Night Raw. I think that was half the reason why WWE didn't like it. They thought they'll change the network and make the trade to SmackDown to see what that network felt on it. And I think Fox really actually did like it. So in the end, I feel it was done like it was probably Vince, Kevin Dunn, and Bruce Pritchard that didn't like the idea, to be honest.
It's a shame, really, because again, it was an absolute genius, and everything he did, he literally turned it to like gold. Everything he touched, he turned to gold. And what's your take on it, Scott? Was it Fox that didn't like the gimmick, or was it all WWE?
I think it's probably mainly WWE, but anyway, Fox are the ones broadcasting their product. So in a way, WWE do really need to be sweet with the TV executives that are putting the shows on. But I think maybe eventually they probably think that the Fiend gimmick ran its course. Whether that's, I disagree with that, because I think there's a bit more they could have done.
Yeah, totally.
Once they made Alexa turn on it, that's sort of where you thought, well, the writing on the wall there. But yet they continued using Alexa as this crazy character, which in a way it does work, but in a way I think I'm glad they've made a bit of like in between now. But I suppose now with Bray, I think WWE probably thought, well, they might have been just fed up with the character. They must have thought there's so much they could have done with the character. And maybe that's why I pulled the plug on it.
Was it the right call to pull the plug on a prominent character like that of the Fiend? Did WWE kill the Fiend, Matt?
I think they did kill the Fiend. Yeah. Why would you say it was apparently budget cuts when number one, he was your number one merchandise selling. He was getting the rating for you week after week with the 5 Live Funhouse segments that he did. So why would you kill something that was working?
I agree.
It was in storytelling.
What about you, Scott? Did WWE kill the Fiend?
It stunted him, probably to an extent where maybe it wasn't fun for others or for Bray himself. I mean, losing to Goldberg was a massive dagger.
That was massive damage to a character such as the Fiend, especially when he's meant to be this demonic, powerful entity. You know what I mean? To lose against Goldberg was just pure embarrassing for a guy like Bray Wyatt. He's come back. He's giving you this absolute brilliant character, ingenious. You know what I mean? Like every promo he's doing, he's literally playing two characters in one. He's selling merch like it's no tomorrow. Absolute, and then we get an emphatic defeat, and it's not an absolute beatdown of a match that carries on for 30 minutes. It's a squash match.
Yeah, if I'm perfectly honest, I don't think the Fiend was booked very well
from the beginning.
Really, because I mean they pushed him into a world title match too soon, where it was way too soon to put the title belt on the Fiend in the first place. Especially because he was only in that cap gimmick for about a month. And they pushed him straight into the feud with Rollins for the Universal Championship. The Hell in a Cell match was probably one of the worst booked matches I've probably ever seen, where you have a match that has no rules and the word hell in it.
Yeah.
And you call it before Rollins can hit the sledgehammer over the steps. And to call a stoppage in a Hell in a Cell match is ridiculous.
I think that was the only decision I disagreed with. I think it should have been all the Fiend, and the Fiend should have had wins after wins after. You should have builded him up. You know what I mean? Like he was always going to lose, but it should have been done the right way, not like.
I agree. I would rather they push him in like done the feuds first.
Yeah.
I mean, the feud with Braun. I mean, yeah, that was excellent storytelling. Did you really need the championship involved? I mean, I think they put the belt on him too soon. I think they pushed into it too soon. Yeah, he had great wins over Daniel Bryan. Fair enough, and The Miz. But I think they put the belt on him a little bit too soon. They could have saved it for like a monster heel run where he went on a run where you think, well, who's going to beat him? I think they rushed it. Fiend was a great character, but I think WWE kind of rushed it a little bit. It didn't really give it the booking that it deserved, I think.
What didn't it deserve? The booking it deserved.
Yeah, I think the booking wasn't as good as it should have been. But yeah, first match, squashed Finn Balor. Perfect,
yeah.
But then you can move him into another feud. But straight away, Vince pushed him into the championship picture, where he went on to beat Rollins in Saudi Arabia. I think they rushed it. I think putting the belt on him and so on, I think they rushed him a little bit. The best feud they actually done with him was Randy Orton.
Yeah, I agree.
And they got the result wrong in the end of that. So I think a lot of it was rushed, and the booking just wasn't as good as it should have been.
What about you, Matt? Was the booking what it shouldn't have been?
Well, like I said to you at the time when he lost to Goldberg, I just couldn't believe what it was seeing and hearing. That was the most unbelievable decision in that guy's character. I just couldn't believe why did Goldberg absolutely squash something that was working. The main number one guy at that precise moment.
Because just like what Scott said, just the booking wasn't what it should have been. Is this a prime example? The booking, all these losses out of nowhere of the Fiend. Was this WWE saying you're not the guy? You may be over and you've got the crowd, but we can damage you and destroy this character.
I think it was mainly towards Goldberg basically saying that how dare you say that I'm going to end up losing to this guy. I'm the main guy. I'm the legend that you want. But I'm not bowing down for nobody, basically.
What about you, Scott?
Well, I think the Fiend was actually originally supposed to beat Goldberg. Yeah, and I think from what I've heard, Goldberg said to Vince that I'm supposed to be like this big superhero character that defeats all the villains around. Says I should be winning this match. And Bray, being the absolute professional he is, agreed to put Goldberg over. So in a way, yeah, I thought you have to credit Bray's professionalism to allow Goldberg to win that match.
It's a shame, really, because again, I do agree with you. I think the way the Fiend was booked, the way Funhouse Bray was tarnished off screen, I just think, in the light of that, it damaged Bray Wyatt mentally. I think him losing his best friend did the damage as well, and I think that's why it came to this. You know, they've damaged, they tarnished his character, which was absolutely brilliant. The fans loved it. I think they should have booked it better. I think he knows that himself. Until we hear from Bray Wyatt, we'll never know why he left in the end. But I think the final blow was Brody Lee dying in such aspect of it. What are your thoughts on that, Matt?
I totally agree with what you said there. It's like, you know, honestly, the room was like he has to take time out, and everyone was speculating when it's going to return. Why is he feeling away? And then to police was like, oh, it's not April. And then to double check and go, no, really, he has been released. And the meltdown on Facebook and Twitter, all in social media, was like, what are you playing at? Why get rid of number one merchandise seller?
Yeah.
And say down to budget cuts. To this very day, I still do not believe that it was down to budget cuts.
I totally agree with you, mate. I don't ever agree or want to believe that it was budget cuts. I think it's an absolute lie that was portrayed on screen when I read it on Twitter. You know, through a John Laurinaitis tweet. I think WWE damaged. You know, I think it was a long process. I think it was bad booking. I think Goldberg. I think that was one of many final blows to the character. You know, like what you said, Matt. The total tarnished embarrassment from losing to Goldberg. He didn't lose the right way. He got embarrassingly squashed. And for a character such as the Fiend, like what Scott said, he shouldn't have lost that way. Not through a squash match. It should have been the right way to lose. And if he had lost to Goldberg the right way and wasn't embarrassed on screen, I think I would have molded to the fact that he beat the Fiend. But because he was embarrassed, the character got tarnished, destroyed on screen. I think that's what caused this absolute meltdown. The fact that you heard Fox TV as well, in the light of that match, going on about, they didn't like the Funhouse Bray. I think that was another reason for him to go as well. You know, hearing from Fox News that, you know, from Fox TV that they didn't like the character, they didn't like the gimmick, as well, the bad booking from WWE the whole year. I think absolutely tarnished Bray Wyatt's great genius of a character, and there was no way out of losing to Goldberg for him, I think. And that WrestleMania as well. Again, I agree with Randy Orton, with Scott.
Mate, that's a brilliant comparison there. I agree with Randy Orton.
I agree with Scott, sorry. That, again, it was great storytelling, but it was just the wrong result, really. You know what I mean? Again, you know, it's the bad booking for the Fiend, I think, was one of the reasons why he went. And the final blow was Brody Lee, his best mate, passing away. I think that just was the killing blow for the character, really. But it was bad booking the whole year. That embarrassing defeat against Goldberg, being embarrassed and tarnished by Fox and WWE the whole year. I think that's what resulted in what we got, really. It's a shame. It's really, really, really a shame, because he's a great character. We've had so many gimmicks from this man, and he's gave us everything. You know, he gave WWE everything. He gave them absolute gold. Every gimmick he gave them was gold. What are your thoughts on that, Scott?
Oh yeah, of course. he's an excellent sports entertainer, and he has got more charisma in basically his little finger than a lot of stars in that roster have in their whole body. He's just oozes charisma. He can sell a character just like that.
Yeah.
But as a performer, absolutely incredible. It's no surprise why a lot of people like him the way they did, because he's amazing. He really is.
Would you say, Matt, that with what's got fans' attention from MITB, who do you think is in that promo? What are your thoughts? Is it Edge? Is it Bray Wyatt?
It's definitely Edge, but the question who's locked inside the crate, it's a number of possibilities.
Is it the Fiend locked in that crate?
There's a possibility. There's a possibility it could be the Fiend, or is it someone totally out of the blue? Is it a legend that's locked away? Is it Gangrel? Who knows?
Are we going to see Gangrel return?
I don't see why not.
Because last year he did come to AEW. He was going to go to AEW, and I remember doing a podcast with you, and I said this. I asked you this when Edge used the Brood music. I think it was a couple of months ago. Gangrel was going to. He was in talks with AEW to use the Brood, bring back the faction on AEW, and then on the light of that, Edge gave him a call and said, "I'm going to use the Brood music."
Yeah, totally agree with you.
Is Edge going to bring Gangrel back? What'd you say?
He could. There's no reason. I mean, where most people will want the Fiend, I wouldn't pass WWE to sort of give us Gangrel instead. Not that that's a bad thing, but I think a lot of people would like to see the Fiend or Bray in some capacity. Even if he comes back not being the Fiend, you can still make that character work.
Or is it what Matt said to me earlier? Matt, when you said, could it be Edge, but he's looking for some other power, and he seeks either the Fiend or something else? What are your thoughts on that?
It's hard to say. It could be one of them videos from before where might have a new video next week that gives us more towards a reveal.
Yeah.
That's how I see at the moment how they could the route they can go down. Like next week on Raw might be a totally different video to the one running the bank on this week's Raw. It could be, look to the clues. Next week it could be the cliffhanger. The lock slowly starts to open, and then next week you got to find out who is actually in the crate. We just don't know.
How would you book, if it is going to be a faction, how would you book it, Scott?
Well, for a start, you'd need a female to take out Rhea Ripley. That person, who could that be? I like it to be someone like Nikki Cross. Take her away from the superhero gimmick, take her back to the gimmick she was, and she's Insanity. and push her to sort of go against Rhea for a different one. Then you'd need someone to take out Priest and Balor. I mean, if Edge goes after one of them and the Fiend goes after the other, or Bray goes after the other, then yeah, I think that's the way of doing it. But you need someone of size to counteract Priest.
What would your message be if you're creative? Vince, you know Vince always gets his beady hands on, stuff like this. If you wanted more influence over Vince, how would you protect this faction? Well, ask this to Matt.
How would you protect Edge's style?
Well, obviously, he wasn't protected from Judgment Day. He had a few incidences, a few disagreements. He was kicked out of his own faction, which I find absolutely confusing. As we previously talked before, if it is going to be another faction, if you want Vince to not have his beady hands on it, how would you protect the faction from Vince?
How I would play it out, you'd have obviously Edge have the rivalry over Priest, because Edge was the one who brought Priest in and basically took him out. You'd have the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, or whatever character it'd be. He has a rivalry with Finn Balor, albeit and he made debut at SummerSlam.
Yeah.
There's the connection there. The only hard part for the Rhea Ripley is who's really recently had a connection with Ripley. Could that be anyone along the lines of, say, Nikki Cross, Doudrop, or Alexa Bliss?
Or Liv Morgan.
Or Liv Morgan, yeah. I said that to you earlier, Matt. Like a dark horse. What if it's Liv Morgan, but somehow Edge, or if it's the Fiend or Bray Wyatt, kind of manipulates an innocent Liv Morgan, like he did to Alexa Bliss. He manipulated Alexa Bliss, turns her dark. But like what Scott said, I think that topic would be a bit. I don't think it would happen, because obviously Liv Morgan having the championship title. Who else would you have?
In the faction?
Yeah.
Maybe as a manager, this might sound a bit of a weird one, but like what you say, like finding in a demon or spiritual power. This kind of outbox here, but what if they have like a spirit kind of thing from Papa Shango?
Interesting.
Well, what about what I said to you earlier, Matt? What if at the moment this faction, if it is a faction, is starting out, you get these, wrestlers coming out with their promos, and you go, oh, that's Edge. Oh, that might be the Fiend. Oh, that might be Liv Morgan. It might be Nikki Cross. Oh, we got something going on here. But what if at the minute they're kind of like a weak faction, if you know what I mean, but they're trying to find some kind of power. and that power means they've got to seek a higher power. What if if a manager comes out and it becomes someone like the Undertaker?
Well, like you said, have it, but it doesn't have to necessarily be in a wrestling match.
But you can lead a faction.
Yeah, could do. But here's a question for you before I shoot off. Right? WWE always seems to get when it starts something big in the pay-per-view, or when they come over to the UK, they always seem to have a big celebrity, right? Right. The next one in the UK is Clash of the Castle. So, in your opinion, which big name could show up at Clash of the Castle?
It would have to be someone English.
Who would your prediction be?
Oof. I don't know, you know. Christ almighty. It's got to be someone. I would like to say comedian, but I don't know. You know it's going to be a comedian, don't you?
No. You're going to laugh with the one I'm going to say.
Is it a boxer?
No.
Who would you have?
Well,
please don't be a boxer. Oh my God, here we go.
No. Well, if you want Sky News, he might need a job bad in tonight.
What, Boris Johnson?
Yes.
Matt, do you want people to watch?
Well, they've had Donald Trump, so they've had Wayne Rooney. So, you know, you never put it past Vince.
Oh, dear me.
24/7 title?
He could do.
What match? What match would you have him? Would you have him on?
He accidentally pins Dana Brooke and wins a 24/7 championship.
Oh dear. I'll tell you what.
If they do that, then that would just be hilarious.
Final question before Matt goes. Would WWE consider a joint pay-per-view with AEW, and how would you book it?
Yes.
How would you book it, Matt?
You think they would?
I think they would.
Are they brave enough, Matt?
Tony Khan's obviously brave enough. Maybe next year he'd probably want for Indoor to be with a different company. But it depends if does Vince have the balls to, you know, to maybe have a bit of control with Tony Khan.
Well, he's not under control at the minute, is he? Because he's being investigated. So at the minute, it's under Stephanie's control.
Well, if it's under Stephanie's control, then I could probably say Stephanie's saying yes.
I hope so. I would love that to happen, Matt. I'll tell you now, I would love that to happen. How would you book it, Matt?
Well, if you think along the lines of the old tournament to do when it was Raw, SmackDown, 205 Live, NXT and NXT UK, then I'd go along kind of route. You know, have Raw, SmackDown versus maybe Dynamite and Rampage superstars.
What matches would you have on that show?
Champions versus champions. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Which, as it stands, be Reigns versus, well, you have to say Moxley. at this very point of time. You've got Hunter versus Scorpio Sky, which could become Wardlow tonight. I'm not saying anything, but it could. You've got Bobby Lashley and Pac. Oh, that sounds interesting as well.
That would be interesting.
Young Bucks versus the Usos. That's a dream match in itself.
Would you have the tag? Would you have the tag team match as a fatal 4-way?
Possibly, yeah. Then you could, then you include the FTR. But then you need another team from WWE.
Yeah, you could have. You could have the SmackDown tag team, and you could have a Raw tag team, couldn't you?
Well, yeah, but the thing is, Usos hold both belts, so they actually are on both sides at the moment.
And you wouldn't really put the New Day in it.
Unless you go, say, you put Usos in it, and then you go, all right, we'll have an NXT tag team.
Oh, the Creed brothers. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you got Brooks and Jensen, who are the UK tag champs.
Or could you have maybe the new team of Tyson and Pete Brown?
Nah, not for me. I mean, for me, Tyson T-Bone for me is just like, I just don't see the purpose. I don't see him doing anything major.
Would you have? Yeah, carry on, Scott. Sorry, I'll answer it.
Put him with Rampage might actually give him something. It might actually make him look better. But from what I've seen of him, I'm like, nah, he just doesn't do anything for me, Tyson T-Bone. He's just one of those people where I look at him and think, nah.
Would you have a faction versus faction?
Undisputed Elite versus Bloodline, maybe.
Or you could have a triple threat faction match, couldn't you? Something like that.
Yeah, you could, yeah.
Like, say, Blackpool Combat Club versus the Bloodline versus a faction out of Raw or another one out of NXT.
Wow, you can't really say that now, can you? Yeah, I think they broke up now.
Or say Blackpool Combat Club versus, if they're still there, Jericho Appreciation Society. You could have the Bloodline and then another faction, say Judgment Day. Or this.
Not many WWE now.
No, there isn't.
Well, it basically be. You've got the great faction name, AEW. You got Blackpool Combat Club, Jericho Appreciation Society, like that. But in WWE, it's basically person 1 and person 2 and person 3 and person 4 and person 5. It's just basically 5 individual stars teaming together to take them on. They won't win.
Yeah.
I was calling them Team Raw.
Team Raw.
Team SmackDown.
Could we see, say if WWE did the Forbidden Door with AEW, and then WWE wanted to work with AEW, and they did something out of the blue, like they did before with SmackDown versus Raw, SmackDown versus Raw versus SmackDown versus NXT. Could we see that with AEW, like AEW versus NXT versus SmackDown versus Raw?
What is like a Forbidden Door 2?
But like what you said, say WWE worked with AEW and then AEW worked with WWE, but kind of like, say, WWE's Forbidden Door was Survivor Series.
I could see that as a Saudi Arabia thing.
Yeah.
If the Saudi prince puts the money in as well, and comes up with some kind of deal with AEW and WWE. Say, listen, I want you two working together. Then have a one-off show.
It would absolutely be fantastic if you know, both shows, if both companies were willing to do a pay-per-view, but for each other, you know what I mean? Like, say, if AEW did a Forbidden Door and WWE worked alongside them, and then AEW were to give WWE something back, and they did something like what you said, like, you know, if it was in Saudi Arabia, or if we had this, you know, return of SmackDown versus Raw versus NXT, and then we had a Swerve versus AEW. Could you see something like that go down, Scott?
Wishful thinking, yes, but I can't see it happening yet. There's got to be a lot of talks before we even think about this, because Vince is someone who's very stubborn and doesn't really like working with other companies. So if this does happen, I'd call it a miracle.
It would be a dream, wouldn't it? But again, like what you said, it would have to be long talks. And if Vince pushed away his arrogance and allowed something like this to happen, it would be a dream. This is what hardcore fans want. You know what I mean? And I think it would be great to see if this would ever go down. But again, it's like what Scott said. It's got to be Vince has to put away his arrogance, really.
Right then, guys, I'm gonna shoot.
Yeah, you can, mate. Yeah.
Great, dude.
I'll see you in a bit, mate.
And speak to you at some point in the future.
Will do. See you in a bit.
Right. There.
I did ask this Matt earlier when we was talking about the cameo, and we thought, what if it could be a faction? Bray Wyatt, I think it was like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, he copyrighted his name, Wyatt6. And for comparison, Jericho did the same kind of thing, but with his name, when he changed his Twitter name to JAS, and he copyrighted that name straight after. And then we got the Jericho Appreciation Society. So you kind of know what I'm going to ask you now. Is Wyatt6 a faction?
It could be.
And if Wyatt6 is a faction, who would the 6 be?
I'd like to say Eric Redbeard, formerly known as Eric Rowan, is someone that Bray knows well, works with him in the Wyatt family. So yeah, I'll definitely put him in there. Maybe you could include Death Triangle as well, because they also worked with Eric at Double or Nothing.
Yeah.
It was a Revolution earlier in the year, and with AEW's use of long-term storytelling, it's got to be the way of that could be a good way to go, I think. And also bring a female character on board, maybe someone like Chris Statlander. Well, because I think it could be AEW, there you go. But if it is WWE, then yeah, bring Eric back, and maybe bring in the likes of Joe Gacy, and I think he's working with real young veterans, I think, in NXT at the moment. But yeah, have those guys, and bring in one of the female, like Alba Fire.
You said AEW. Where could he most likely go, you think? Is the damage all done with WWE? Will he pull a swerve on everybody and go AEW?
He could. I mean, right now, he has dropped a lot of hints on social media, like the wait is nearly over, patience, and so the wait. So whatever it is, it's got to be soon. Now I know SummerSlam is a couple of weeks away, so that could be something that's likely where he helps out Edge. So yeah, I think I really don't know. Maybe he might just be teasing us. Maybe we might not see him in a wrestling again. Who knows? Maybe it's a business venture outside of wrestling. I haven't got a clue.
As we talked about earlier, is Roman losing the championship at SummerSlam?
At SummerSlam, no.
Where could you see him?
It'd be a draw.
What, sorry?
I think it'd be a draw at SummerSlam. I think he'll lose it in Cardiff.
So you think it's going to be a draw at SummerSlam?
Yes.
Elaborate on that. What do you think?
I think there'll be a big move where they both get laid out and neither of them will answer the 10 count. So the referee had no alternative. It's just basically the way Macklin said, well, neither of them have got up. So so it has to be a draw.
Could you see that go down?
I can definitely see it going down. 100%.
I know you said he's not going to cash in, but what if something similar to that did happen and Theory cashed in?
Well,
would he lose the cash in or?
I don't know. I mean, I think it is indication that Roman is going to lose the belt soon. I think it is indication of that.
I heard something. Yeah, go on.
Because with Big E, they swerved the Big E away from him and make him cash in on Bobby Lashley instead. But now Roman has both belts. So someone's got to do it, and someone's got to beat him. And I think McIntyre or Lesnar is a lot more believable than Austin Theory.
It's got to be someone believable. This is what I said on. I'm not saying I don't agree with the win for Theory. I think it would be good. You know, I like the idea of WWE trying to make a new star because again, you're not going to see Roman around forever. You're not going to see Drew McIntyre around forever. You're not going to see Randy Orton around forever. You're not going to see AJ Styles, Bobby Lashley around forever. So obviously they've got to try and make these new stars, like what you said earlier. But for me, I just can't see him cashing in on either Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns. It's got to be someone like Drew who is willing to, take one bump. You know what I mean? And I don't think Theory cashing in on Drew would affect Drew in some kind of way. I don't think that would damage Drew. Do you think?
I'd rather if it did happen on American soil, because if Drew wins at Clash of the Castle, gets his big moment in front of home fan, and then Theory comes down and does it. Because it won't really affect Drew, but I think it affects the mood of wrestling fans.
Yeah.
Thinking like, oh, seriously? I mean, come on. I mean, let Drew have his moment. That's why I think Drew winning, have a small run, and then have Theory cash in. Because, to be honest, I can't see Theory's first world title reign being a long one. If he does, it'll probably be like a 2 or 3 month thing.
See, like,
I can't see that at all.
I think it would be believable if he cashed in on someone like, The Miz, someone like that. Say if he cashed in on Riddle, it would be believable. But again, like,
with me, I didn't think Riddle would win because of the angle where he lost the Reigns.
With Reigns, yeah.
The week before. So, because of the angle was that he couldn't challenge the title whilst Reigns is champ. So for me, putting the briefcase on Riddle was a little bit. It wouldn't have made sense booking wise.
And again, it would make sense that they didn't, because then they could complete that storyline if they wanted Riddle to break away from Randy Orton.
Well, yeah, a lot of people expect Randy Orton to turn heel on him. I think when he comes back from injury, a lot of people don't expect that soon.
Would you reckon someone like Randy Orton would go into this new faction? I know it's a bit off topic, but
I kind of hope not, because Randy is a guy who he's been around the business so long. I mean, he has the right to sort of end it on top in like as a single star challenging for the world title. Being a faction, I think he's been there, done that a few times. But does he really need it? I don't think he really needs to be in that, to be honest.
Is he the next? If it's not John Cena getting 17, will it be Randy Orton?
Well, he's on 14, so he needs a couple more, I think. But
yeah, I think he needs two more to be level with John Cena.
I think Cena wearing number 17 is more realistic than Randy Orton doing it, in my opinion.
You don't think he'll get more than 15?
He might get 16, but I don't know. It all depends on the booking.
Could we see AJ Styles champion again?
I think there's one more left in him, yeah.
Does he need that? Because his character's been mid-carded for so long, hasn't it now?
Yeah, he's been out of the reckoning for it for quite a while. But it's going to take some good booking. At the moment, he's not quite getting it.
What are your thoughts on the Royal Rampage?
I thought it was a great match. I think it's different. It's I think it's an interesting concept with the two rings. I think Tony Khan seen the two rings, looked at a match type he came up with, and I think it worked very well. So yeah, I thought it was a very good match.
Fans were kind of saying that it was copying WWE in some similar way. Do you think that is true? I did talk about this with Matt the other night.
Well, I think the word royal didn't really need. I mean, they even the same as MLW use a royal writer.
Yeah.
I mean, people use the words royal. It's always going to be a comparison to the Rumble.
Yeah.
It always will be.
I know it was some kind of different match, but do you think the whole match was similar to the Rumble?
Kind of. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the concepts were the same. I suppose having it where one half competes in one ring and another half competes in the other. I mean, that's the big difference. So yeah, it's very similar, but it also needs that little bit of originality, and that's what the two rings gives.
Yeah. I think it was a good concept, because you had 10 in one ring, 10 in another ring, and then the two winners from each ring then collide, and then the winner goes from there, doesn't it? And then I thought it was a brilliant match. It was original. But again, they've got to keep it to, like what you said, that originality, so it doesn't feel similar to that of a Royal Rumble. would you say it needed a bit more runtime?
Yeah, it could always benefit from a little bit more. Always. I mean, there were some guys in there that put in incredible effort. I mean, Butcher and the Blade, I thought were fantastic in that match.
Yeah.
I thought Darby Allin, Hangman Page, they're all great, and a surprising winner as well. They've given it to Brody.
Brody King,
Even though I really can't see him beating Moxley tonight, but it's good to see him get in that position, and it's good to see them give a win to someone who a lot of people might have overlooked.
What are your thoughts on the Blood and Guts?
It was beautiful carnage.
Yeah, it was.
Exactly what it was.
It was. It was an absolute. It was
amazing.
It was a classic. I did ask this to Matt as well. Was Sammy Guevara the right guy to start it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's definitely someone that AEW have put a lot of faith in because he's been there from the beginning. He's been a part of some great feuds, some great matches. He's been a 3-time TNC champion. So yeah, I can definitely see the vibes of putting Sammy in there first.
What are your thoughts on Claudio during that match?
He done what? I mean, he's only been in the company a week. He's had a high-profile match in Zack Sabre Jr. and he's been a part of Blood and Guts. I mean, if that's not a great introduction to the company, I don't know what is.
Should Eddie Kingston... Go on.
I do think the match would have been better with Bryan Danielson in it, but it was a great replacement.
Should Eddie Kingston be the guy to tap Jericho?
Yes. Absolutely.
Elaborate on that.
Well, the story has been going for the last 3 months. I mean, Kingston had that big win over Jericho at Revolution. But since then, I mean, Jericho's on a thorny side, using the fireballs, like you say, out of Harry Potter. So...
the wizard.
He injured Jericho. He injured Kingston. So yeah, I thought having Kingston get another revenge on him would have been the perfect end to the story, I think.
Is this going to cause more heat with Claudio and Eddie Kingston?
They did get on. To be fair, they did work the angle quite well. They were great teammates and they actually showed respect throughout it. I think there will be an angle going forward where there will be a bit more where they butt heads, but yeah, I think that's for the future. I think
the future, yeah. I think it's too soon to say, but I think down the line, long-term story-wise, I think it will go down. And again, when it does go down, I think it will be a classic. It will be a classic. Moving forward, who's taking the title off Moxley?
Punk, unfortunately.
Punk.
I mean, this is what I really want Moxley to win. Nothing against Moxley. I'm a big fan of him. I really love watching him. I think he's brilliant. But he's there as a temporary champion whilst Punk comes back. I think Punk's the long-term plan. So all he's going to do is probably lose it to Punk anyway. So I think it would have made more sense for it to be Tanahashi. That's the way I see it. It would have made more sense for Tanahashi to be the interim champion and flop back and forwards between here and Japan. For America and Japan.
And then you could have had CM Punk versus Tanahashi, and then Tanahashi gives it up to CM Punk. Yeah, I get that. Anyway, I think we're gonna wrap it up there, Scott, and then we'll do another one in a couple of days.
Yeah.
Thanks again, man. I really appreciate it, mate, and I'll see you on the next one. You have a good evening, mate.
Yeah, you too, mate.